Erich had given me a picture album of Baba's 1965 Darshan, and I was looking through some of the pictures, but I really wasn't paying too much attention because I was thinking of what Baba was going to do in the interview and what it would be like, and was feeling very curious and somewhat nervous, but very happy also. And finally Erich came and he said, "Baba has come and he wants to see you." And so we walked down the hall, and as we walked down the hall, Erich said, "Baba is not going to give you darshan, and you should not touch his feet or prostrate yourself before him or any of these formalities." And to me that felt fine because I really didn't feel comfortable with those formalities anyway. And, but Erich said, Baba may embrace you if he feels like it. All this was fine to me because it was what I was feeling anyway. And we left our sandals at the door, and the doors opened, and Baba was sitting right there, and he gestured to me to come in, and I was surprised to see Baba right there so immediately, but I came in, and Baba called me over and immediately embraced me and had me sit at his feet. Erich sat right next to me, and Baba wasted no time at all with any formalities or anything at all, just went right into what he wanted to say to me and began gesturing. The first thing that I was taken by when Baba did begin gesturing was the beauty of his gestures. They were just so graceful, so wonderful. Wished I could have just watched his hands and not had to worry about anything else going on in the conversation. It was so beautiful. Baba gestured so quickly, and an entire sentence came out. It was really very surprising to me. I don't believe I'd ever seen any movies of Baba, so I'd never seen Baba in motion. I'd seen pictures of him, still pictures, but I had never seen Baba gesture before, and it was just breathtaking to watch him do that. And he wanted to know if I had known Richard Albert, and this was a very surprising question for me because I hadn't thought about Richard Albert or things in the States very much at all for the few months I had been in India. And it was a logical question to ask me because I had gone to Harvard and came out. Baba knew that I had taken drugs, although we had had no communication about that. And so he was wondering if I was part of this community which had been experimenting with drugs and which was interested in mysticism and so forth. And I said, "No, Baba, I don't know Richard Albert, but I do know who he is." And Baba said that he had gotten a letter from Richard Albert saying that he was going to stop taking drugs at Baba's request. And Baba said this made him very happy. And Baba was obviously, visibly happy that Richard Albert was not going to take drugs. He really cared for Richard Albert and was delighted that he was not doing this. And Baba looked at me and said, "Don't take drugs." And at that moment I felt completely transparent. Baba could see right down to my inner being. But I felt, at the same time that I knew Baba could do that, I felt that it was all right. I could trust Baba. I could feel safe. He knew everything about me, but he was completely loved. Then Baba asked about Robert Dreyfus. Had I seen Robert when he came back to the States? Did our paths cross when I left for India? And so forth. And I had not seen Robert, and the last I had heard of him was his postcard when he had met Baba, and so we had had no contact. Then Baba asked me, "Well, where was Diana? What happened to Diana?" And I said that Diana had gone back to work, and Baba said this was good, but I was the far more fortunate, and I felt that myself as well. And then Baba had Stay with God, and not, in fact, I don't know if I'd heard of it at that time. And Baba had me turn around, and there in the back of the room behind me was Francis with a bunch of the other Mandali, and Baba introduced us and had me turn around again, and then Baba told me to read Stay with God. And at that time I began to get a sense of the rapport that Baba had with the Mandali in the back of the room. That he was just giving his love to the Mandali, and they were just soaking it up like sponges. And I also got a feeling for what kind of a relationship they had with Baba, that they were really privileged to take in so much of the avatar because they were empty. And being empty in Baba's presence is about the greatest thing that can ever happen to a person, because when one is empty of himself in Baba's presence, there's nothing but Baba. And these people were just absorbing Baba, and I was also conscious of the fact that I couldn't absorb as much. I wasn't empty. I'd never been aware of the need for emptiness as much as I was in Baba's presence. Being so full of myself, I could only take a little of Baba, but I was happy that I could take something and appreciate it, and I felt very happy about that. And Baba asked me how I had slept, and I was again surprised. I was just completely taken off guard by this whole kind of questioning. Baba was light, he was casual, he was very quick with his gestures and so forth. I had expected some real heavy spiritual points, or Baba kind of testing me to make sure that I was aware of the fact that I had a long way to go on the spiritual path, and that it was really hard work, and it was really tough business. But Baba wasn't doing that at all. He was pouring out his love and at the same time carrying on a very casual conversation with me and getting me to think of other people and not be so concerned with all these questions of my soul and all character building and so forth. But Baba had always stressed that for young people, I was 21 at the time when I met Baba, that love and service should be their watchwords, should be the things for which they should strive. And Baba here was giving me the most perfect example of that he possibly could, pouring out his love for me to feel and experience, and at the same time showing me his deep concern for other people, and the fact that he lived in them and really cared for them. So I told Baba that I had not, that I had slept pretty well, not perfectly. And then Baba asked me what were my plans. And I told Baba that I was going to catch the 3 o'clock train out of Pune, and I was going to Bombay, and then I was returning to the States and going back to school. And Baba said that he pointed to his wrist as if there were a watch there, and be sure to make your train. And then he said that he was happy that I was going back to school. His plans made him happy. And also he wanted me to write him one letter when I got back to the States. And then Baba, and this question completely caught me off guard. He asked me if I had any questions for him. And it never in the world occurred to me that he would ask me if I had any questions, because I always thought that he would be doing that questioning. And my mind was a blank. Wasn't anything in there. But slowly I began to remember that I had a poem for Baba. And I had it in my pocket, and I reached up and I was going to hand it to Baba. But Baba wanted it read out. That was his gesture, read it out. And just all these things taught me so much, the way Baba worked with me just in a short period of time. This Baba showing, we like personal contact around here, live performance, not these static experiences. Give me a little piece of paper here, you're right here, perform for us. We like people around here, like performances, liven it up. So I read the poem, and the poem went something like, ignorance of you is despair, knowledge of you is hope, love of you is happiness, service for you is dignity, but obedience to you is bliss. And Baba said, like the last line best of all, and Francis gave a cheer from the back of the room, and the kind of complete openness in the presence of the avatar. There's no formality to it at all, and Francis felt something, came right out with it. Baba felt something, liked it, told you so. It was just so candid and so completely open. And all these things were just tremendous experiences for me. Baba was nothing like I expected in almost every way that I could think of. So Baba then wanted me to stand up, and he asked his brother Jal, who was also in the room, to stand up, and Jal comes to about here on me. And Baba said, well, you have nice height, and gestured that to me. And I was a little bewildered. I mean, here the avatar is sort of telling me that I have nice height. It's kind of a comment that maybe your Aunt Mary makes, you know, my, such a nice tall boy you have, Mrs. McGrew, and that type of thing. And it really just completely astonished me that Baba, you know, could talk about such small things and little things and do it with such love, and at the same time astonished me that, you know, the 5 minutes was going by and I'd expected Baba to dwell on heavy spiritual things or, you know, some really pithy remarks or poetry or something, but, you know, Baba wasn't doing that at all. And then he said that he wanted Jal to show me around and that the townspeople would get quite a kick out of seeing a tall Indian, tall American and a short Indian. And Francis said, well, Baba, that's the long and the short of it. And, you know, so to the casualness and everything, Baba was adding corn. Francis was piping in there and jokes and humor, but the experience was Baba was loosening me up in about every possible way that he could. I mean, because not only was he getting me to laugh and getting me away from being serious and everything, but he was also sharing the tremendous warmth that was felt among the people there. Because it was the type of humor that you use when everybody is intimate with each other. You know each other well. Everybody knows that everyone else loves him, and so you feel free about making jokes about the other person, which to some extent might be sarcastic, but among people who know that they all care for each other and love each other, it's family humor, it's warmth, and Baba was including me in the family by sharing some of that family humor, and he was also showing me that sarcasm comes only when the other person doesn't feel that you care for them. But when the other person knows from the heart that you really love them, then you can feel free about making jokes. And he was showing me how to use humor and how to relate to people in that vein. So I was just at the point where I was expecting Baba to be totally casual and completely conversational. And Baba says, you know, I'm as soft as butter, but as hard as steel. And when you expect the steel, he gives butter, and when you expect the butter, he gives you the steel. And so I was expecting Baba's casualness and warmth, and then Baba, in much more pithy, cryptic form than I had ever expected, told me what he wanted to tell me. And the first thing he said to me was, what you are looking for is God, and you will find God inside yourself. God is not restricted to my physical form. And that just completely overwhelmed me, because I hadn't thought of myself as looking for God. I had thought of myself as being interested in Baba, wanting to obey Baba because it would somehow be the best life that I could live. I didn't really understand myself as striving for God or seeking God, and it was just overwhelming. Baba was saying, you know, here is the goal, way up here, inside you in your heart. It's the ultimate goal. You should strive for that, for consciousness. And furthermore, don't think that just this physical form is God. God is really in your own heart. And then Baba said, and you should remember it, that God is inside everyone and everything. And then Baba said to me, and if you're true to the last line of your poem, you will one day see me as I really am. And that was just more overwhelming than I can express, because I had never in the world given a thought to seeing God as he really was. I hadn't thought of striving for God or anything. And then Baba lifting me up, pulling me down, and lifting me up, and just as quickly as you could imagine. And here's Baba saying to me that obedience to him would enable me to see God as he really was. And it was beyond my wildest conception, my wildest imagination. And as usual, Baba says these things as if they were statements of fact. And they kind of rolled out of Baba as if you or I would say, and the grocery store is 2 blocks away, and the price of milk is 30 cents a quart or something like that. You know, all these things were simple facts to Baba. How was Robert Dreyfus, and how did you sleep, and what you're striving to see is God as he really is. I mean, all these things are simple facts to Baba, and so they could roll out of him with as much or little ease as he wanted to give it. And so there it was, in a very condensed version, Baba telling me what he wanted to tell me, called me over and embraced me, and that was the interview. Jal took me around Pune and told me all sorts of stories. And my response to Jal at the time, although I now can see in retrospect all the things I didn't know about Baba. And Jal was always talking about Baba. I always had stories about Baba. Baba went here, and Baba knows this person, and here's Baba's house, and Baba went to these caves, and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, gee, this Jal's kind of narrow here. Single-track mind. Why doesn't he talk about other topics? I thought the avatar really made a great person out of you. You're capable of showing your interest and concern in these other topics. That never occurred to me that, Baba really means what he says, that it's very important to focus 100% on the avatar and remember him in everything we do. And Baba was giving me that example through Jal, just that kind of attitude that he wanted me one day to be able to have, being conscious of Baba in everything, every little detail of everyday life. And it's exactly that single-pointed focus that Baba wishes his lovers to have. I left India and returned to the United States, and I distinctly remember that the tremendous feeling of happiness that I had been experiencing in India, that for a couple of months culminated with meeting Baba, began to decline very distinctly when I touched American soil. It's uncanny how it happened. But I soon became aware, when I got back to the States, that the honeymoon was over. And the glow, the light that Baba had left with me, took some time to fade. It was still there for a couple of months, but it was diminishing. And I became strongly aware that I was a changed person, in the sense that I knew Baba, I knew he was God, or as well as I could know. I felt that. And I felt that that all the things that Baba was saying were really true, as just he had shared with me his tremendous love, and this made me feel that it was all worthwhile. That at the same time I had this tremendous potential inside of myself. And at the same time I felt a strong sense of responsibility toward Baba and toward myself, that I must do all that I could for Baba to tread that path that Baba had shown me was the path that everybody must go on. And so it was really a feeling of we're all going on this path, and we should all come and do what we can, the best that we can. May as well do it sooner than later. I did write to Baba the one letter that he had asked me to write, and he told me that he was happy with my love for him, and that I should love him more and more until I began to love him as he should be loved. And then he said at that point I could feel the real longing that comes from separation from the beloved. And he said at that point I would be capable of real surrender to him. In another letter that I wrote to Baba, because I felt that there was something I needed to have clarified, Baba wrote back that I should love him, remember him, and obey him, remember him above all beings in the creation, said Baba. Remember me above all beings in the creation.